Spiders are one of the most successful predatory arthropods alive today. These remarkable arachnids are the seventh most diverse order of animals on Earth, beaten only by beetles, butterflies and moths, wasps and ants, flies, true bugs, and weevils. More than 51,000 species are recognized, meaning they make up a staggering portion of terrestrial predator diversity. Spiders are also one of only a handful of arachnid lineages to have evolved the capability of producing silk, a biological innovation that has proven extraordinarily versatile. Spiders, known scientifically as Araneae, from the Greek for spider, have some amazingly diverse ecological roles, with species ranging from tiny jumping spiders smaller than a grain of rice to massive tarantulas with leg spans exceeding 30 centimeters. They're found on every continent except Antarctica and have existed for over 380 million years, probably even 400 million years based on recent molecular clock estimates. Unlike insects and crustaceans, spiders capture prey using venomous fangs with chelicerae, modified mouthparts that inject toxins, whereas insects use mandibles for chewing, and crustaceans employ various appendages for grasping. Despite their astonishing modern diversity and remarkable ability to adapt to all kinds of different habitats, the origin of spiders is still poorly understood. The early evolution of this spectacular group of animals is one of the most intriguing mysteries in paleontology, and the study of spider evolution and their relationships to other arachnids has resulted in some pretty intense debate among scientists. Among the most fascinating adaptations in spider evolution are the cliff-dwelling specialists, lineages that have conquered vertical rock faces and cave systems through extraordinary anatomical innovations. The mystery of early spider evolution. For starters, what exactly did the first spiders look like? And what did they evolve from? Well, that brings us to the first mystery of spider evolution, because the oldest complete fossil specimens we know of already look very similar to fully formed, web-building capable modern spiders. The most ancient complete spider fossil that's been found so far was announced in February of 2018, and it dates back to the Carboniferous period, around 305 million years ago. The species it belongs to is named Idmonarachne brazieri, and the fossils known for this creature are just stunning. They're pretty much perfectly preserved with every appendage present, and it's clear that this animal was already an accomplished predator with those characteristic chelicerae for capturing prey, just as in modern spiders. However, it still displays a suite of very primitive traits as well. Most notably, Idmonarachne lacked spinnerets, the silk-producing organs that define true spiders, indicating it represents a stem lineage closely related to, but not quite within, the crown group Araneae. Idmonarachne was found in the Mont-Sault-le-Mine fossil beds of France, which has also produced a number of other early arachnid species, including primitive harvestmen and other spider relatives. This carboniferous ecosystem preserved in these French deposits reveals a world where arachnids were undergoing rapid diversification in the coal swamps and early forests. Looking at slightly younger material, the species Atarcopus fimbriunguis is a very interesting creature, with the fossil evidence of this animal showing that, anatomically, it's among the most primitive spider-like arachnids currently known. Atarcopus lived around 380 million years ago in what is now New York State, during the Devonian period. This animal was definitely capable of producing silk, with modified appendages called spinnerets visible in the fossils and all the right anatomical structures to pull this off. However, the key difference in this species is that it probably couldn't build aerial webs yet. Web building is a biological superpower and an integral part of what has enabled spiders to become so successful. By producing liquid silk proteins through specialized glands, spiders can then extrude these proteins through spinnerets and then manipulate the resulting threads to construct elaborate traps to capture flying insects. Spiders that use aerial webs possess relatively large spinnerets, part of the silk production system, that are involved in the precise control of silk thread diameter and placement. Non-web building arachnids have relatively much smaller spinnerets or lack them entirely, and the spinneret structure can be used to tell whether a creature has web building capability or not. Well, it turns out that Atarcopus probably had fairly rudimentary spinnerets and therefore likely was not building complex aerial webs. Now, I need to quickly add here that there was some back and forth between two groups of scientists over whether Atarcopus could really build webs, with another team suggesting that the Spinneret structures were more advanced than initially described. But then the original team that studied the species replying with additional evidence, suggesting it couldn't construct aerial snares. So, for now, it seems more likely that Attercopus was using silk primarily for lining burrows, or creating egg sacs, rather than for prey capture. Secondly, it's important to note that the web building we're talking about here is specifically aerial orb weaving, where the spider constructs a vertical or angled web suspended between vegetation or rock surfaces. However, there's a group of spiders that actually do not build these elaborate aerial structures, the spiders traditionally called mygalomorphae, which include tarantulas, trapdoor spiders, and funnel web spiders. Most of these mygalomorphs don't build aerial webs at all, instead using silk to line burrows or create trip lines near their refuges. But, just to make things interesting, many species have evolved specialized uses of silk for cliff face living, creating sheet webs on vertical rock surfaces. This diversification of silk use in cliff-dwelling lineages is something we'll explore in much greater detail. Carboniferous spider radiation. Looking at carboniferous spiders again, the discovery of these early period arachnids therefore showed that the ability to produce silk had evolved before complex web architecture did, helping to solve one question that spider researchers had been debating in the past. The Carboniferous fossil sites also offer some insight into how exactly web building came about in these animals too, as several species retain primitive characteristics alongside more derived features. Some fossil spiders from this period show intermediate spinneret configurations, with 2 pairs of spinnerets rather than the 3 pairs seen in many modern species. It therefore seems that early spiders were probably using their silk initially for burrow lining and creating shelters on rock faces. More evidence for this comes from the fact that the Carboniferous deposits often preserve spider fossils in association with crevices and overhangs, suggesting they were using vertical surfaces for refuge. As such, it was suggested that spiders evolved aerial web building through the vertical substrate approach, as opposed to ground-dwelling origin, descending from cliff-dwelling ancestors that lined rock crevices, and then presumably started extending silk sheets outward from these refuges, which gave rise to funnel webs and then fully suspended orb webs. So it's clear that there were already a fair few spider lineages present in the Carboniferous, and they weren't all particularly closely related to each other. These arachnids must have already undergone irradiation, increasing in diversity very early on in this period, which makes sense as this would have coincided with the evolution of flying insects, plus a plant radiation that created the first extensive forests, which increased the available prey and habitat structure for these animals. But what about older species than those found in the Carboniferous? The Carboniferous followed the Devonian period, the final period of the Paleozoic era before the great coal swamp forests expanded. So, is there much evidence for spiders before the Carboniferous? There are a few studies that have looked at the genetics of modern spiders, finding that, based on the timings of when all the lineages diverged from one another, this arachnid group probably originated sometime in the Silurian period around 430 million years ago. Pretty amazing when you think about it, that the very oldest spiders may have originated during the initial colonization of land by arthropods. But how come no fossils of these Silurian spiders have been discovered? Well, the reason for such a relatively poor fossil record of early spiders is due to the inherent nature of their anatomy. These arachnids have generally very lightweight exoskeletons that help them to climb and hunt on vertical surfaces so well. But this also means their remains are more likely to be destroyed by natural processes before they can enter the fossil record, particularly in the high-energy environments of ancient coastlines and cliff systems, where many early spiders likely lived. As a result, the current accepted evidence for the very oldest spiders we know to have existed dates to the Devonian period between about 385 and 360 million years ago. These are all rather fragmentary remains, limited to isolated chelicerae, leg segments, and silk-producing structures. However, they do show how rapidly these creatures spread across the globe. From their likely point of origin on the ancient supercontinent Laurussia, they clearly reached Gondwana quite quickly in geological terms, with Devonian spider remains found in modern-day Scotland, New York, and even fragmentary evidence from what is now Australia. Modern cliff-dwelling lineages. Returning to a more recent time frame, there's an incredible diversity of modern cliff-dwelling spider clans that illustrate how these arachnids have specialized for vertical living. The family Filistatidae, the crevice weavers, are masters of cliff habitats, building distinctive tube webs in rock fissures. These spiders, found across Mediterranean regions, Africa, Asia, and the Americas, construct silk-lined retreats that extend deep into narrow cracks in cliff faces, with radiating trip lines extending across the rock surface to detect passing prey. Species like Cuckolcania hibernalis, common across the southern United States and into Mexico, demonstrate the remarkable adaptations for cliff living. These spiders possess flattened bodies, dorso-ventrally compressed to barely 3 millimeters in height, allowing them to squeeze into crevices as narrow as 4 millimeters wide. Their legs span up to 35 millimeters in adult females, giving them an impressive reach for detecting vibrations across rock surfaces. The silk they produce has unique adhesive properties suited for anchoring to mineral surfaces, rather than organic substrates, with attachment points that can withstand winds exceeding 80 kilometers per hour on exposed cliff faces. Among the most spectacular cliff specialists are members of the family Spinneret, particularly the genus Loxosceles, the recluse spiders. While many species in this lineage are ground-dwelling, several have evolved specialized cliff-dwelling behaviors. Loxosceles rufescens, the Mediterranean recluse, constructs irregular webs in limestone cliff systems across southern Europe and North Africa. These spiders have adapted to the extreme temperature fluctuations of sun-exposed rock faces, with metabolic adjustments that allow them to remain active when surface temperatures reach 45 degrees Celsius during summer days, then drop to 10 degrees Celsius at night. The family Pholcidae, cellar spiders, includes numerous cliff specialists, particularly in tropical and subtropical karst landscapes. Species in the genus Pholcus build delicate, three-dimensional webs in cave entrances and beneath cliff overhangs. These spiders employ a fascinating defensive strategy called whirling. When threatened, they vibrate their bodies so rapidly that they become a blur, making it difficult for predators to target them. This behavior is particularly effective in the echoing acoustic environment of cliff faces, where the vibrations can confuse bat predators that hunt using echolocation. It's at this point that we must take a look at how these cliff-dwelling specialists fit into the broader classification of spiders. The relationship between cliff specialists and ground-dwelling or arboreal species has been investigated through both morphological and genetic analyses. Research published in 2019 by arachnologists at the Natural History Museum in Bern examined over 200 species across 15 families, finding that cliff-dwelling behaviors have evolved independently at least 40 times across spider phylogeny. This convergent evolution has produced remarkably similar adaptations across distantly related lineages. Flattened body forms, elongated legs with specialized tarsal claws for gripping mineral surfaces, and silk with enhanced adhesion to rock have all evolved multiple times. The study found that these adaptations are particularly common in families that originated in arid or semi-arid regions, where cliff systems provide crucial refuge from temperature extremes and desiccation. The recent discovery of fossil spiders preserved in amber from Myanmar, dating to approximately 99 million years ago in the Cretaceous period, has provided extraordinary insights into the ancient origins of some cliff-dwelling lineages. One specimen, described in 2021 and named Electroballooning antiquus, preserves a spider in the act of ballooning, releasing silk to catch the wind for dispersal. The specimen's leg morphology and spinneret configuration suggest it belonged to a lineage ancestral to modern cliff-dwelling Filistatidae, indicating that these specialized behaviors may have Cretaceous origins, coinciding with the diversification of flowering plants and the expansion of rocky habitats in mountainous regions. Perhaps most remarkably, recent research has revealed that some cliff-dwelling spider lineages have evolved specialized visual systems. Unlike many spiders that rely primarily on vibration detection, several cliff specialists in the family Pholcidae, jumping spiders, that inhabit rock faces possess exceptionally acute vision. Species like Portia fimbriata hunt other spiders on cliff surfaces in Southeast Asia, using their sophisticated eyesight to stalk prey across vertical terrain where web vibrations would be unreliable on wind-exposed surfaces. There's clearly still much to be learned about the evolution of cliff-dwelling spiders and their remarkable 300-million-year journey from ancient Paleozoic shores to modern mountain faces worldwide. The debates surrounding the multiple origins of these specialized behaviors continue to drive fascinating research into spider ecology and evolution.